Hello, it's Kristen here with a short video. This video will feature just a couple of floor-based exercises, really simple little movements to help ease stiffness and discomfort in the back, as well as regulate your nervous system if everything is a little bit wound up. So try these, they don't work for everybody. So if you feel at any point it's not right for you, just get up, make yourself a cup of tea and do something else. But give it a go and you might find that this helps you in some shape or form. So start by lying down and have something under your head maybe. Try it out and you lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet standing up. Take your time there to really find out what is making your head a little comfortable. Or a little more comfortable, and it may be that you find actually on the floor or on the mat is best, or a little bit of something soft that lifts your head slightly up might be better. So take a moment, just feeling your feet connecting to the ground. It's really important, seems obvious, but it does make a difference. You can even kind of push one foot into the floor a little bit or the other, and that can be your first kind of exercise. Even if you're sort of letting one foot press down a little more and that knee kind of then reaches forward, it may lift one hip a little, and then when you do that on the other side, a bit like you're sort of walking without lifting your foot up. It's like a very small, maybe kneading like cats do. It doesn't even have to be visible. You might just sense your feet and press one foot a bit more into the floor than the other. So you're kind of starting with activity at the other end of the body through your feet. And just see if that's comfortable in your back. It might be quite nice if there is a little bit of movement there. Or you also can just let that go still and just sense the ground support. Supporting your whole body. So when you're sitting or standing, it's usually your feet that feel the contact with the ground, or maybe even the back of the legs and the hips if you're sitting. But now there is a lot more support to the whole back of your body. So the feet, of course, but the back of the pelvis, areas of the back and shoulders, and your head. And just notice that briefly you can bring in a little bit of walking again through the feet. Just to try that out. And then the next little piece of movement you can go to is a tilt of the pelvis. So it's a bit like if you're imagining the curved tailbone. You're just letting it roll a little one way and a little the other way. So it's your pelvis taking a slight turn, where your lower back might get a little heavier and then it sort of naturally comes up a little. And you don't have to make this a big movement. The smaller the better, really, actually. But you might just sense that when you're rolling the tail against the floor, a little up and a little down, it also moves your head slightly. So especially if you're experiencing some discomfort in the neck, this could be quite nice because it's your pelvis moving your head in the top of your spine rather than you having to move that piece itself, if that makes sense. You may also notice some breath here, so you could place your hands up around just below the navel and breathe into that area as your back slightly rises and your pelvis tilts one way, where the pubic bone gets heavy. And then on the out breath, as naturally the abdominal wall kind of deflates, you can roll it in the other direction. If you get all muddled up with breathing and movement, never mind, just notice that you are breathing and get more familiar just doing the movement. You don't want your brain going into complicated gymnastics with this. Let's keep it simple. And then you can just see if your head likes doing a little side to side movement or not. So
with a tense neck, for example, may be just the thing, or you may not like it. It could be very small. You can have your eyes open or closed. And the idea is really that your jaw is loose, you're not gritting your teeth, and that your head is really heavy, so you barely notice any muscles doing this movement. It's not about lifting your head up or keeping a light. It's more like you're ironing the back of the mat or the cushion with your head, and you're rolling your head a little side to side, like your brain is coming out of your ear. Or if that's not such a good image, just think heavy ear, listening to the floor. Just testing it out. Sometimes it's more one direction or the other that is liked. And then you can bring your feet and your knees a little closer together, or you can keep them separate. It's either way. The next movement can be done both ways. And your hands might be a little bit further out to give you a bit of stabilization. And then both knees just rock a little side to side, like you want to make one hip a little heavier and then the other. A bit like opposite to what your head was, or the same as your head was doing, really. Could be very small, especially if the back is a bit temperamental. Just make it smaller. Sometimes it can be nice to make it into a bigger movement as well, so you can check that out for yourself. But it's, if you keep it small, it's more on a relaxing level. And you don't have to, you could let your head roll into the opposite direction of your knees and keep it really slow and small a movement. And just check you're still breathing. And then pause again. And you could bring your heels a little closer to your hips for this next bit. If you want to do this one, let your head come in line with the rest of you. So if your head was resting up on something, take it down a level. Your arms can be wherever you want them for this. All you're going to do is let your feet stand into the floor a little more so that you feel your knees picking up via the thigh bones, your pelvis, and you're like a bit of a hammock. And it doesn't have to go very high. Again, you're just hanging out, and then you drop the pelvis back down again. Maybe you take a breath in, and then on the out breath, you send the floor down. This middle piece should be as relaxed as possible. If it's very rigid, just notice that and see, can you give all of that agency to your feet and lower legs? So that this middle piece is really just passive, like you're picking up a blanket and pulling it over the back of a chair, something like that. And then again, just rest that there. Notice if anything's a little different. And I also got here a rolled up blanket, or you could use a rolled up towel. Now this is for if you're experiencing more sort of neck issues. You might have your head on the floor, but support your neck with a rolled up towel or blanket. It doesn't have to be very big and puffy. So you may be on it and feel like, well, that's not really doing anything. But it's quite subtle sometimes in ways of how it works. And then again, you might play with a slight roll side to side, or even backwards and forwards. And just feeling a little bit of feedback, a little bit of support to the back of the neck. It can feel kind of protective or supportive to the neck if there are some issues there. Again, the movements you're doing should all be comfortable, so if they're creating pain, then don't ignore that. And then you can roll onto your side, if you like. And this is where you can use your lower arm to support your head, or you could use a cushion again and just let your head rest on that with a bit of space there. And then your top arm is out in front with or without that lower arm being present. Your hips and shoulders are on top of each other, your knees are bent at a comfortable angle. And then you just let your top arm go to the ceiling. You let your eyes follow that hand, so your head starts to also face the ceiling. And you take your arm behind you somewhere, maybe it's leaning against the chair or the wall, or it has space to drop further. Take a breath and then come back again. I always like letting my top knee pull me back. If that doesn't make any sense to you, don't worry about it. It's still a simple movement to do. It's like you're unwinding the upper part of your body, and that top leg slides back a little to accommodate the arm going further. And then that top knee might reach forward a little to pick you back up onto your side. If you don't sense that, just let your arm do the movement and opening up your chest and rotating through the spine. Taking a breath and coming back. And then of course you would repeat that on the other side. So I'm just going to turn myself around so you see from the other way. Again, really check that your neck is comfortable with this. If your head and jaw are sort of holding on to everything, or your spine around here is holding on to your head and not letting it quite rest and roll, you might want to try out your arm instead, or some other kind of support, so that you feel, or that your head feels, it can just rest into whatever it's resting on. So it's a really nice rotation and stretch and opening, potentially. Doesn't have to go all the way to the floor, of course. You might just open up a little bit, so or slow enough that you can really check your individual range that feels right. I'm just going to go one more time. And at the end, when you're coming back up, check you're doing it in a comfortable way, in a slow way. You're coming back up to sitting, so you're not kind of flinging yourself off the floor after you've done all this work. And just maybe take a moment before you run off to do the next thing to notice if your spine feels a little different, hips or neck or head, mid-back, chest, shoulders even, and how you're feeling generally on the inside, if there's a little bit more settling there, a bit more presence, or whatever else you notice. So I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck playing some more.